Hi everyone, ROARS here. Nice to meet you. I'm the owner of Formula. Today you have heard the voice. Now you have the face.
The heart of the
Proper noise,
operation.
that isn't it? That's the sound of 2026 waking up. Thought it was about time I showed my face. Quick favor. Me narrating from now on or our usual pro voice? Let me know in the comments. Now stick around. That fire up was a warning to the grid. Let's see what's really happening in Maranello. There is a specific, almost religious type of silence that settles over Maranello in the winter. But on the 16th of January, that silence was replaced by a noise that felt like a punch to the gut. Ferrari didn't just fire up an engine, they birthed a new era. We've been hearing whispers for months that the 2026 project was stumbling over its own feet. But the successful fire-up of the new power unit is the ultimate shut up to the paddock skeptics. It wasn't just a mechanical start. It was a roar of relief from a technical department that has been under more pressure than a turbocharger at full chat. To understand why this sound matters, you have to understand the sheer terrifying complexity of the 2026 regulations. We aren't just talking about a bit more battery power. We are moving to a world where the electric motor, the MGUK, is expected to pump out nearly 500 horsepower on its own. That's nearly triple what the current cars do. When that engine coughed into life on the dyno, it wasn't the familiar, slightly muffled thrum we've grown used to. Was a raw, more aggressive snarl underscored by a high-frequency electrical whine that sounds like a sci-fi spaceship trying to tear its way out of a Ferrari red box. The technical discovery here isn't just that it works, but how it sounds. Because the MGU, the bit that harvests heat from the exhaust, is being scrapped for 2026, the exhaust note is naturally going to be louder and more unfiltered. For the TOC, this is music. It's a return to a more visceral, antisocial noise that reminds you why we fell in love with this sport in the first place. But for the engineers, that noise is actually a byproduct of a massive struggle. Trying to make an internal combustion engine play nice with a battery that wants to dump half a megawatt of power onto the crankshaft without blowing the gearbox into orbit. Fred Vasseur has been playing a very clever game of nothing to see here, while his team in Italy has been pulling 18-hour shifts to hit this January milestone. This fire-up proves that the hardware architecture, the actual iron of the engine, is sound. In Formula One terms, being able to run a full system integration this early means you've moved past the will it explode phase and into the how do we make it faster phase. It's a psychological blow to Mercedes and Red Bull Ford, who are likely peering over the Maranello fences with a fair bit of anxiety right now. But while the engine was screaming on the dyno, the human side of the garage was going through a very different kind of fire-up. Ferrari has officially confirmed that Lewis Hamilton and his race engineer Riccardo Adami are parting ways for the 2026 season. Now, let's be honest, 2025 felt a bit like a first date where one person wants to talk about quantum physics and the other wants to talk about the best way to cook a risotto. Adami is a brilliant engineer. He was the calm in Sebastian Vettel's storm. But the chemistry with Lewis just hasn't reached that Bono level of telepathy we've come to expect from a seven-time champ. Adami isn't being shown the door. He's being moved into a high-level role managing the driver academy and the previous cars program. It's a classic Ferrari move, keeping the institutional knowledge within the walls while clearing the decks for a fresh start. You can almost see the logic if you're bringing in a driver who operates like a precision instrument. You can't have any static on the radio. Lewis needs an engineer who doesn't just read the data, but someone who can translate the feel of a car that is essentially a high-voltage laboratory on wheels. Lewis's recent social media post about the year of the snake versus the year of the horse wasn't just him being a bit zen. It was a corporate restructuring of his own psyche. He's talking about leaving behind unwanted patterns. And in the world of F1, that is code for I'm changing my environment until it matches my ambition. He struggled to adjust to the Ferrari culture in 2025, and by moving Adami aside, Vasseur is essentially giving Lewis a blank piece of paper to write his final chapter on. It's a bold, slightly ruthless move. But then again, nobody ever won a championship by being overly sentimental about their engineering staff. The 2026 power unit poses a unique challenge for any race engineer. Because the energy deployment is so massive, the engineer becomes less of a tire whisperer and more of a tactical energy manager. Will be tasked with telling Lewis exactly when to burn his electrical reserves and when to save, all while navigating a car that will likely be more temperamental than anything he's driven since 2009. To do that, you need a relationship built on absolute unwavering trust. If there's even a 1% lag in communication, the 2026 car will eat its own tires and leave the driver a sitting duck on the straights. There's a bit of humor in the timing of it all. Just as reports surfaced of a very positive dinner between Adami and Lewis to smooth things over, Ferrari announced they were moving Adami to the academy. It's the F1 equivalent of a football club giving the manager a vote of confidence on Tuesday and sacking him on Wednesday. It suggests that while the dinner was pleasant, the data probably told a different story. Vasseur is a man who looks at lap times, not guest lists, and he clearly saw that for Lewis to thrive in the 2026 electrical era, he needed a different voice in his ear. The search for Adami's successor is now the biggest gossip point in the paddock. Will Ferrari promote from within, perhaps a young hungry data analyst who grew up idolizing Lewis, or will they go for a shock external hire? There are whispers of a few high-profile names being head-hunted from rival teams. People who understand the Hamilton way of working.
Let's drive
Whoever
success
it is,
together.
they'll be stepping into the most high-pressure seat in the sport. You aren't just an engineer. You're the person responsible for the legacy of the greatest driver of his generation. No pressure, then. Technically, the 2026 engine is a fascinating beast because it has to be sustainable as well as fast. It'll run on 100% sustainable fuels, which changes the combustion characteristics entirely. This is likely why the fire-up sound is so distinct. The way the fuel burns and the way the turbocharger, now without the MGU's help, manages the pressure creates a completely different acoustic signature. It's a drier, more mechanical sound. It's the sound of a team that has stopped trying to make the engine beautiful and started trying to make it efficient. Lewis mentioned he's looking internally at his personal team, too. This tells me he's going into 2026 with a special forces mindset. He's trimming the fat, reorganizing his travel, his rest, and his support system. He knows that at his age, the window for an 8th title isn't just closing, it's slamming shut. The 2026 engine fire-up gives him the hardware and the engineer swap gives him the software. It's a total system reboot. 2025 was the transition year. 2026 is the year Ferrari intends to reclaim the throne by sheer force of will and electrical torque. The integration of the new battery packs is where the real magic, your misery, happens. In the fire-up, engineers aren't just listening for a smooth idle, they're looking for harmonics. If the electrical systems and the V6 aren't perfectly in sync, the vibrations can literally shake the car to pieces. Hearing that engine run cleanly this early suggests Ferrari has cracked the code on their vibration, damping, and energy recovery layout. It's the kind of technical milestone that lets a team boss like Vasseur actually sleep for 4 hours instead of 3. We also have to consider the Adami factor in the driver academy. Some might see it as a demotion. It's actually a strategic master stroke. Adami knows what it takes to work with champions like Vettel and Lewis. By putting him in charge of the youngsters, Ferrari is essentially downloading his brain into the next generation. They're building a performance culture that doesn't just rely on fast cars, but on the disciplined engineering mindset that Adami has spent decades perfecting. It's a win-win. Even if it feels a bit bittersweet for those who like the Lewis-Riccardo pairing. The 2026 car is being designed around a shorter wheelbase and less drag, meaning the engine has to work even harder to push the car through the air. The fire-up confirms that Ferrari's packaging is likely very tight. They've managed to fit that massive MGUK and the enhanced battery systems into a footprint that doesn't turn the car into a truck. Every cime of space in that 2026 engine bay is worth its weight in gold. And the fact that they've got it all firing up on schedule suggests the aero versus engine war in Maranello has finally reached a peaceful treaty. For the fans, the curiosity factor is at an all-time high. We've seen the photos, we've heard the sound, and we've read the cryptic social media posts. It feels like the pieces of a very expensive, very fast jigsaw puzzle are finally clicking into place. The fire-up wasn't just a test, it was a signal fire. It tells the world that Ferrari isn't waiting to see what the 2026 regulations bring. They are dictating the terms of the engagement. They've got the engine. They've got the driver. And now they're finding the right man to sit in the middle of it all and make it work. One thing is for sure, the 2026 season won't be won by the team with the most horsepower, but by the team that manages the human-machine interface the best. Lewis is the ultimate interface driver. He's sensitive to every tiny vibration and every decimal point of energy deployment. By moving Adami aside, Ferrari is acknowledging that Lewis needs a specialist who can keep up with his obsessive attention to detail. It's a high-stakes gamble, because if the new engineer doesn't click, Lewis will be left to drift in a sea of data with nobody to throw him a life jacket. But let's look at the year of the horse optimism. There is a renewed energy in Maranello that we haven't seen since the early 2000s. Verse has brought a nonsense French pragmatism to an Italian team that was previously drowning in its own traditions. He's not afraid to fire up a new engine ahead of schedule, and he's certainly not afraid to swap out a legendary engineer if it means giving his star driver a better chance at glory. It's a performance-first philosophy that is finally starting to bear fruit. As the smoke clears from the dyno room and the engineers head back to their workstations, the roar of the 2026 Ferrari engine still echoes in the air. It's a sound that should make the rest of the grid very, very nervous. Is the sound of a giant waking up, shaking off the unwanted patterns of the past and preparing to gallop into a new era. Lewis Hamilton has his engine. He has his year of the horse mentality, and soon he'll have his new engineer. The snake has been left behind. The future of Ferrari is loud, electric, and utterly uncompromising. In the end, Formula One is a game of what if. What if the engine is as good as it sounds? What if the new engineer is the Bono Lewis has been searching for? What if Ferrari has finally found the balance between technical brilliance and human synchronicity? We won't know the full answer until the lights go out in 2026. But based on the fire-up and the bold personnel changes this week, the Scuderia isn't just hoping for a miracle. They're engineering one, and that more than anything is the most authentic, exciting news that IFOSI could have asked.